The year is 1865, and the floorboards of a Cleveland office tremble as wagons creak outside, their wheels sinking into ruts carved by countless barrels of crude oil. A young man stands at the window, posture rigid, gaze steady. The city is noisy with speculation, the new oil trade lurching between fortune and ruin. Prices collapse without warning, fortunes vanish overnight. Rivals shout, bankers panic, clerks scurry. Yet this man does not waver. His books are balanced to the penny, his partnerships written with care, his reserves tucked away like secret weapons. The storm rages, but inside him there is silence, a kind of practiced calm. He is only 26 years old, yet already he seems older, harder, as if chaos itself is an old companion. His name is John D. Rockefeller. To outsiders, his composure seems unnatural, almost eerie. But to understand that calm, one must travel back, not to oil, not to ledgers, but to the restless dirt roads of his boyhood. Before he commanded empires, he was a child in a wagon, gripping the rails as the house he had known disappeared into dust. His life was shaped by a series of departures, by houses left half lived in, by the ache of moving again and again. Every relocation etched something into him: endurance, suspicion, hunger for permanence. To grasp the man who would one day master volatility, you must begin with the boy who was never allowed to stand still. John Davidson Rockefeller was born in the summer of 1839 in Richford, a small hamlet cradled among wooded hills in central New York. The house into which he entered the world was plain, built of rough timber, its beams groaning under winter snows, its hearth smoking in the draught. The family was not destitute, but neither were they secure. His father, William Avery Rockefeller, later notorious as Devil Bill, was a wanderer at heart, a man who disguised restlessness as opportunity. He claimed the title of traveling botanic physician, selling bottles of cure-alls that promised to heal every ailment. In truth, they were mostly alcohol laced with herbs. Handsome, persuasive, quick to vanish when debts mounted, William embodied instability. His wife Eliza was the opposite, austere, pious, anchored in her faith. To neighbors she appeared composed, modestly dressed, her children held close. She prayed with them nightly, drilled them in thrift, repeated lessons of discipline as if they were the only furniture she could carry between homes. For a time, Richford was quiet enough. Chickens scratched in yards, fields rustled in the wind, church bells marked the Sabbath. Yet even as John learned to toddle across the floorboards, impermanence seeped in. William had no patience for poor farmland or suspicious creditors. Whispers of debt spread. Opportunity always seemed better somewhere else. And so, before the boy could form lasting memory, the family packed their goods into a wagon. Bed frames strapped with rope, Eliza's Bible tucked safely, a few tools and dishes rattling together. They set off for Moravia. To most families, a move was an event once or twice in a lifetime. To the Rockefellers, it became a rhythm. Moravia was larger, a village with a proper main street, shops selling fabric and tools, a more vibrant church. The house they rented was plain, but Eliza tried to carve order from its corners. John was 6 when he first attended school here, a one-room building where chalk dust floated in beams of light. The benches were hard, the lessons strict. The teacher called roll, stumbling over his name, while other children giggled. John said nothing. He simply straightened his slate, copied numbers, and sank into concentration. For a child forced to begin again in unfamiliar company, silence was armor. He learned that reputations could vanish overnight. One day you were the new boy, the next you were gone. But knowledge endured. Columns of figures, once learned, could never be uprooted. Neighbors described the Rockefeller children as polite but reserved, never quite part of the town. They were transients, without graves in the churchyard or kin on nearby farms. Yet the young boy discovered something useful in that distance. He became an observer. While others squabbled over games, he studied how they played. While classmates mocked the newcomer, he noted the pattern. Familiarity bred acceptance. Absence erased it. From Moravia, he carried away not friendships, but the skill of adaptation. He could arrive in silence, measure the room, and earn respect by discipline rather than charm. But William did not stay long. His concoctions lost novelty, creditors sniffed at his heels, and whispers of dishonesty thickened. Once more the wagon appeared, the family's goods crammed into its bed. Just as John grew used to the sound of the bell calling him to class, he was hauled away. The boy did not cry or protest. He watched the road stretch ahead, watched trees blur into distance, and quietly vowed that one day he would not be subject to such whims. He would not live at the mercy of another man's debts. He would command permanence, even if he had to buy it coin by coin.
Their next home was Owego, a canal town bristling with commerce. Barges slid along the water, carrying grain and lumber. Taverns clattered with laughter. Merchants jostled for position. Here the Rockefellers lingered longer, nearly 8 years, and for John, these were formative seasons. He was old enough now to feel the sting of his father's reputation. William swaggered through taverns, selling potions with a grin, but neighbors muttered, "Devil Bill," behind his back. John noticed the exchanged glances, the skepticism. He also saw his mother endure it without complaint, spine stiff, eyes steady, pressing her children to waste nothing, to pray daily, to hold their dignity even when the world stripped it away. From her, John absorbed 2 unshakable truths. Waste was sin, and shame could be survived by discipline. The house in Owego was modest, its walls thin against the winters. John hauled wood, milked cows, helped in the garden. Each chore was more than duty, it was a rehearsal for control. If the world outside was unstable, he could at least command the rhythm of work. In the one-room schoolhouse, he excelled at arithmetic. Other boys jeered or bragged, but John bent over columns of numbers, carrying digits with meticulous care. He discovered a quiet joy in exactness. To him, numbers were immovable. They did not shift when you crossed a county line. 2 + 2 was 4 in Owego, as it was in Moravia. While his father reinvented himself in each town, John found permanence in calculation. And yet stability never held. William's schemes collapsed once more. Creditors loomed, neighbors gossiped, trust eroded. The family resolved to head west, to Ohio, where land was cheaper, opportunities wider, anonymity easier. For John, now entering adolescence, the news was bitter. He had begun to carve a place in Owego. He had begun to know classmates, to taste belonging. Now he was uprooted again. But this time he did not merely endure, he analyzed. Each move was not only loss, it was instruction. He was learning how men gained trust and how they squandered it. He was watching how reputation could vanish overnight. He was noting that those who controlled their debts controlled their fate. His mind, already methodical, began to record the world like a ledger. The journey to Ohio was long and hard. Imagine the family wagon groaning under weight, wheels sinking into mud, oxen straining at their yokes.
Nights spent at inns that smelled of smoke and sweat. Mornings when frost formed on blankets. Eliza huddled with the younger children, whispering prayers. John sat upright, gripping the rails, watching every mile as a lesson. He despised the insecurity, yet he also recognized it as training. If survival required endurance, he would endure. If protection required money, he would save. If permanence required power, he would one day grasp it. They settled in Parma, Ohio, on land that proved poor and unforgiving. The farmhouse was crude, drafty, barely enough for a large family. Farming yielded little, winters bit hard. Yet here John crossed the threshold from child to young man. He rose before dawn, chopped wood, carried water, trudged to school in the snow. More importantly, he began to earn for himself. He hired out to neighbors for odd jobs, digging potatoes, mowing hay, working long days for pennies. Each coin he tucked away, counting and recounting, keeping his own crude ledger. The lesson of moving was clear. Money meant protection against uncertainty. His father squandered, his mother saved. John chose the latter path with iron resolve. In Parma, the boy's character hardened like oak. He was no longer just a child enduring his father's wanderings. He was becoming a man determined never again to be powerless. Every time William disappeared on mysterious trips, every time neighbors muttered about the Rockefellers, John silently vowed, "My word will be unbreakable. My debts will be paid. My fortune will be secured. If my father is the wind, I will be the rock." And so the restless years of relocation, the half-lived houses, the wagon roads left behind, did more than unsettle him. They forged in him a craving for permanence so fierce it became obsession. Later, when markets convulsed, when rivals panicked, when fortunes rose and fell overnight, Rockefeller's calm seemed otherworldly. But to him, volatility was not foreign. It was simply the echo of his childhood. He had rehearsed chaos in Richford, Moravia, Owego, and Parma. He had grown up watching stability vanish like dust behind a wagon. And so, when oil prices crashed or competitors schemed, he did not flinch. He remained steady, as he had trained himself to remain steady as a boy gripping wagon rails. The child who moved too often became the man who built an empire immovable. The boy who learned that reputations could vanish became the magnate whose word was law to bankers. The adolescent who saved every penny became the tycoon who hoarded cash reserves until rivals collapsed. The family's wagons had carried him from hamlet to hamlet, but within that motion was born his opposite instinct, the hunger to root himself so deeply that no one could move him again. So when we see the young man at the window in Cleveland in 1865, unmoved by chaos, calm amid frenzy, we are not witnessing mystery, we are witnessing memory. Behind those steady eyes flicker the roads of New York and Ohio, the drafty houses, the departures at dawn, the lessons of endurance. His childhood of restless homes had already given him the ultimate advantage, to remain unshaken when the ground beneath others gave way. And in that calm, he built not just a fortune, but a dynasty that no wagon could carry away.